Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Class 1A podcast, where today we will be diving into the first Team Up Missions chapter. My name is Andrew Nimzagern, and alongside me, as always, I have Dylan Beal. And Dylan, it's been a while. I think we've been jumping between Demon Slayer. We took a week off. How you doing? How you feeling?
Great. I mean, the latest season of anime just started. It's great. It's amazing. There's a ton of good shows. Vigilantes is out. It's amazing. The main manga's going. It's amazing. It is never a worse time to be a fan of anime right now,
What are
and
you
I'm just
watching
having
the
a good
spring
time.
season so far?
I'm watching Spy Family and Kaguya-sama. Both incredible, incredibly funny. Highly recommend both of them. If you're not watching Kaguya-sama already, like, what are you doing? Go back, watch the old seasons. This is season three. It's like the funniest thing airing right now. It's so good.
Yeah, I agree. Those are the two new ones I'm watching. I randomly picked up One Piece as well, so I'm slowly chugging along through that. But it's been a good time for anime. I'm loving everything I'm watching, and I am very excited to talk My Hero. I'm kind of getting re-energized about My Hero because Vigilante's hitting an awesome spot. Kind of knowing what is going to happen in tomorrow's chapter. Some of the leaks looks like it's going to be awesome for the main series. My Hero's
New
spot
season.
and the new season, was that announced this week? No,
No,
we're just
no,
getting
it's been
we're just
it's
getting
been
closer to
announced,
that.
but we're getting close. It's the fall. It's this year.
That is true.
It's real.
We're getting there. So it's a great time to be doing My Heroes. So we figured we were going to kind of go down a different route of My Heroes. We talked a lot about the manga. Dylan does a great job on that and the Vigilantes. So we wanted to both talk about the team up missions. For those of you that don't know what it is, this is another spin-off. I don't even know how many spin-off series of My Hero there are right now. But this one sticks pretty close to the source material. Pretty much what the premise of the team up missions at a very high level universe is that the Public Hero Safety Commission wanted to kind of put together an initiative that forced students from different schools and pro heroes to work together. Obviously, in kind of the growing threat that's happening out there. I don't know exactly where this happens in the timeline. I think the first one happens pretty early on in the show, unless you know exactly when, Dylan.
Yeah,
But
it takes place actually like right before the Dobby incident, I believe. Like the where he attacks Hawks and Endeavor with the high end Nomu. It happens before that. Not a ton before that, but it happens kind of around that area. At least the first one, I believe.
okay, so right at the end of season 4, then is kind of when the first one kicks off. And basically, what each and every chapter is going to be is a random combination of people working together, kind of solving some kind of problem. We'll kind of go very high level here in the second of it, but this could be anything but actually stopping villains. One here talked about kind of the more support side of it all. So it's a really cool premise that really kind of opens it up for anything. And Dylan, just before we even go into kind of a couple of chapters, what do you think about the idea of this? Do you want more of these kind of random side up missions? Do you wish it was kind of just a new story, kind of like Vigilantes, or what are you thinking?
I actually really like this type of format a lot. I think it's just an easy way to just say, what do you think would be a cool story? Like, what characters can we throw together? The premise is super, super low to the ground. The implications aren't really all that wide. Well, I don't think that their intent is to go pretty wide with the some of the implications on there. But there's some actual like big stuff in some of these missions that might have been a little bit accidental. But I really like it. It's basically like an easy fanfic setup. These stories have probably written a million times over by other people, but I really like it. I think it's really good. It's like a nice little thing to add to it, and it's doesn't take away from the story, and it's just like more fun stuff to have with some of these characters.
Yeah, I see in the very much similar vein of like, what have these people fought? Like instead of that's them fighting, it's them kind of teaming up. Like, oh, how would these people work together? How would these people
Exactly.
work together? And I think really kind of, I guess let's go through the overview because one of them I think is a really cool idea. So the three chapter overviews here. Well, the first one was Bako, Ochako, Deku work with Mirko. They pretty much run into kind of an accidental villain, someone that isn't meaning to do harm, but ends up doing harm to those around him, and they help him solve with that. The second one is Bakugo and Deku just kind of stopping some villains with Hawks. Kind of a little life lesson, I guess, there. And then the third one is Melissa Shield, Deku, and May. Really just Melissa Shield and May working on Deku's costume, which I think is a really interesting one out of the three, though. The other two kind of feel like stories that could have happened in a normal My Hero chapter, but this one is focused on more of the support side of it, brings in a very random character like Melissa Shield, and kind of builds a world outside of just fighting villains, which is something that I get really excited about because that opens up to so much more. And maybe even getting the civilian side a lot of it, or like those kind of sides of the story that you never really see. I think this kind of opens up the opportunity of Deku to stumble into like a homeless shelter because of all the people that have been displaced because of villain attacks recently and stuff kind of like that. Kind of the more hard hitting stuff that you kind of get a glimpse of here and there, but kind of randomly do that along with, I don't know, some random pro hero that you haven't seen in 3 seasons. So that just gets me really excited, those kind of ideas. Um, I know you have a couple of individual topics about these chapters. We're not going to go through and recap each individual chapter because outside of these three, there's also 3 1-shots that were just kind of randomly thrown in there. I think Dylan kind of knows a little bit more about where those came from, but there's only 3 chapters and there's 3 more in the actual volume. So that's 6 manga chapters to walk through. So we're just going to kind of talk about what we found interesting, what we want to take away from it. So you might find somewhere else that does the in-depth chapters, but for us, we just kind of wanted to talk about these. We think they're really cool. So Dylan, I'll kind of let you start off some of your thoughts, and we can kind of jump back and forth on what we thought about the chapters.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about the first one. So the first mission is like the accidental hero. We have Deku and Mirko. That is like the interesting setup here. Is Mirko is part of the team up mission here, and essentially like what's going on is there's this kid who can't control his quirk. His quirk is he releases just a bunch of like gas, like poisonous gas, and of course they find him. They realize he's in pain. They help him release his gas, kind of save the day that way. Now, the thing I want to talk about in this is this kid, he emits this gas and he can't contain it because he like literally gets it built up inside of him and he has to release the gas out. And if you remember, it's very easy to forget because we're with literal heroes all the time. But you're not supposed to use your quirk ever unless you have a license. Like you're just not supposed to. It's like waving a gun around in public basically here. And so he releases the gas, and Deku's like, "Oh, glad that we could save you and everything." And he's like, "Yeah, thanks, Deku." And Deku's like, "Yeah, hopefully we can get you reduced jail time." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like it like flew under the radar because the implication was like, yeah, he was doing a quote unquote bad thing, and like, yeah, it's whatever. We'll get you reduced jail time, but he's still going to jail for something he can't control. Like and that's something that's really wild I want to bring up, and this is part of the, like they paint, like, an implication accidentally in here, but I think it's pretty true for Hero Society because we all know that, like, certain parts of this society are kind of I don't wanna say purposely messed up, but, like, Horikoshi wrote them with the intent of, like, this is something about the society that's really messed up. So, like, one of them is, like, the way that they treat, mutant quirks. So anyone who, like, literally doesn't look like a human because of their quirk, like, there's a whole big, like, issue with racism against them. So that's something very intently written by Horikoshi. And this one could also be it of where some people just can't control their quirks. And I guess because they can't control their quirks, they then have to go to jail. And that's a huge, I know, a huge implication. And I want more info about that. Like, I want to hear more about like what did they go through? Like, do they just get thrown into jail? Do they go to like a quirk rehab center where they have to learn to not use their quirk? Like what goes on after this point?
I have read that chapter multiple times, and I completely forgot he went to jail at the end of
Yeah, he goes to
it. But now that you
jail.
say it, I do remember that the cops still showed up, like he still got arrested. So that is crazy, and yeah, and I think that's kind of part of what I was getting at earlier. Is that like, yeah, you would never think about that during the main show because that's not something fun to really talk about. That's not something you really want to promote. But here, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. Yeah, I mean, will we ever know? We'll never see that kid again. We'll never really know exactly what happens. But that is super interesting and something that I never would have thought of.
Yeah, and the thing that makes it even more wild is if you're like, okay, all of this is also wrapped up in Japan's judicial system, which is a nightmare to say the least. Basically, like if you are put in front of like a jury of your peers, you're going to jail at that point. Like it's one of those like you're like almost like put on there is guilty and you have to prove yourself innocent almost. Like it's almost the opposite. Like the conviction rate once you get to that point is like 99% or something crazy like that. So this is even more wild the fact that people are just accidentally like even like using telepathy, right? Like what about Deku's mom? Was she's at the grocery store and like
Yeah, like, can you use them
like
at home?
yeah.
Do you think you're allowed to use quirks at home? Because we've seen Deku's mom use quirks at home a couple of times. And then the
Yeah,
doctor, she used her quirk in front of the doctor because the doctor called the
yes.
cops on her and sent her off.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the crazy thing. It's like some of these are like it's an implied like kind of like yeah, it's whatever. It's like if I don't know, like if you're in the States, right, and you're smoking marijuana in your house, right? Like that's like it's fine, right? Like it's yeah, it's illegal, but like it's something that like you kind of brush away or whatever. But like, what is okay? What's the okay level of quirk use here, right?
I know. That'd be correct. That would be such a plot twist. And Deku's mom got arrested in the first chapter of the series for using her quirk in the doctor's office. Now, yeah, I'm just trying to think of or like, could you use it in self defense? Would you get in trouble if you used it in self defense? Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
but
Yeah, like
Bakugo definitely couldn't Bakugo been sent off to juvie for being the shit out of Deku with his quirk?
also, in the first scene of the show, when they're all in class, there's like people just like firing off their like there's a kid with like a dragon head or something spitting out fire, just like waving it around, like going nuts.
That's so true. Like, yeah, you can't tell me yeah. That's funny. I never really thought about that and forget kind of how serious they take like the no license stuff. But yeah, I mean, half the people in the series could have been arrested at this point.
Yeah, and
Uh,
like what's the line that you draw between a quirk that you don't have control over and one that you do? So like obviously the quirks that make you like an animal or whatever, you're not going to go to jail for using that because it's an innate thing. But what about invisibility? So invisibility, like if we have in the series with Hagekure, is always on. So you're not going to go to jail because that's how you are. But what if you had a quirk that you could turn it on and off? If you turn invisibility on, is that using your quirk and you'd be sent to jail? What if you faked it? What if you faked it and just pretended it was like a permanent quirk and you were just always invisible, so you didn't go to jail for using your quirk because you could just pretend you can't turn it off?
we could go down this rabbit hole for days, I think. And none of it would make sense. And you know what the worst part is? We could never get an answer on any of it. So,
Nope, we never will.
I think you have one more point on mission 3 that I want to kind of bring into because it includes the best girl in all of My Hero Academia. So I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, so in mission 3, the setup for this one is, Deku needs a new, costume, I believe, like, he needs a new hero outfit, and so Hatsume, teams up with Melissa Shields because she's coming to Japan to visit. Melissa Shields being from Island, I assume America before that, but it was in the first My Hero movie is where she makes her appearance. I want to bring this up because I think this is the first point that we confirm canon. Now, at this point, we just assume all the movies are canon. But there was a point of where we didn't know because this was like before Vigilantes came out. So we didn't really have any confirmation that certain characters were actually real because we just went off of whatever is in the manga. But I think this was the first time that we had like a cross source material for that, where we like confirmed yes, Melissa Shields, everything that happened on Island actually happened. It is confirmed in the storyline because in the main series, the way that we're able to ground it and say, yeah, that those events definitely took place is, I guess before the movie came out, they had like a very short scene of where they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go fly to America to see an old friend," but they didn't really say, oh, "We're going to Island to do this stuff." And then in the main series, we eventually get a reference to Melissa Shields. I believe she sends over like a gauntlet, kind of later on in the manga, like not even in the anime yet. It's just like she sends over something to Deku, and that's kind of where we can confirm it. But other than that, this is the first time that we talk about the movie outside of the movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong, is there any other point you can think of? Because
I,
I,
I
I
was
think this is the first.
I think there's a bunch of references to her here and there because like I'm just kind of looking on her page. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure in the main manga she's been confirmed more or less because I remember we had that conversation and freaked out about it at one point.
Yeah, but this is newer.
This
So
is
so
this is earlier in the timeline. Yes,
yeah, because Team Up Missions at this point came out years ago. Like
yes,
this manga came out years ago at this point.
and then apparently in some bonus page, it was like more or less confirmed that she had a part in designing Endeavor's newest suit. So
Oh,
that was some
interesting.
reference to that. I don't know when exactly that fell in, but in volume 25. So that's pretty new as well. So that's
Yeah.
probably somewhere around where it happened in the manga as well. So
Yeah, so this would be, I guess, the first reference for it then, because this is at least like in the show time or in the manga time, right? Like this is season 4, so this is, yeah, this is years ago at this point when this came out.
yeah, and I love to see it. Obviously, I mean, I think we more or less have kind of moved towards the movie just being canon and accepting that.
At this point, all movies, like if they come out, are for sure canon.
Yeah, so I think early on we've had the conversations of if they weren't. So I think her being canonized in manga form isn't as big of a deal as we've kind of come to accept that a lot more. It's still super cool. I love seeing her. I mean, obviously I loved the first. I actually liked the first movie a lot more than both you did. I really liked Melissa Shield, so I love seeing her come back into the story, and I love seeing these kind of offshoot characters. Like she even got another chapter in here. It was one of kind of the bonus chapters, which I'm sure was more kind of a promotional piece for the Two Heroes movie forever ago, but it kind of even dove into her being quirkless and stuff like that. And um, it was just a really fun chapter and a character that kind of included in here. And this is what I was getting at earlier when I said, like, just bring in random characters. Someone you see on one random chapter. Like, heck, even like going back and like, let's get a rematch against some of the Shihatsuki people like Chrono or like characters like that didn't really get a chance. Like, oh great, Chrono escaped from jail and like let's go fight a cool villain that didn't get much screen time. Like I think you can do with that. I think you can bring in random heroes or like we met so many people during the license exams. I thought a lot of them were really cool. Let's bring back Meatball Boy. Put him in a
Oh my
chapter.
god, Meatball
Like,
Boy.
you know what I mean? Like I think it's just kind of a fun way of not taking anything too seriously, trying to come up with unique premises or little ways to expand the world. So Melissa Shield coming in and the fact that they're willing to do a whole like 40-page chapter just on two people building a support item is really cool to me.
Yeah, and so we're gonna cover all of the team up missions that have come out. I think they're on 3 volumes total so far of these team up missions, and I haven't read ahead
I
to
mean,
see what some of the other ones coming up are. But one I would absolutely love to see is a team up mission for villains. So like, kind of like
that'd be
the
cool.
My Villain Academia kind of concept of where they flip it around. And the team up mission is told from the perspective of like villains, because it'd be so cool, right? Because we had a lot of very random villains throughout the entire series. I would love to see them team up. I think having some of the Yakuza and League of Villains side characters kind of come together could be like a good way to do that. And because you can just jam this in the timeline kind of whenever, it works really, really well.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't even really say when things like that happen. I mean, you can kind of tell based on suits what characters look like and stuff like that, but at no point do they actually say when anything was happening. So even though this came out around season 4, I don't think we're 100% confident that it happened right before that fight where you kind of think it does. I mean, they don't say that. We can kind of put pieces together and that's probably where it happens, but I don't think they'll ever put a date or like a time period on any of this. You just have to go off of who's in and what people look like around.
I think at this point, our brains are completely broken from My Hero, because I think it's the second mission. The second mission is about Hawks teaming up with Deku and Bakugo. And when that happened, my mind immediately was like, all right, so these characters actually meet for the first time at the start of season 6 during the Endeavor Hero Agency arc. So that means this had to be afterwards. And because of the Hero Commissioner talking, that means it has people, like, I did the math in my head and I was like, what is My Hero done to me? What
Yeah.
what has Class 1A done to me at this point of where like we just like break our brains on these timelines?
Yo, what are they throwing at Vigilantes character here? Let's go over to a certain different country.
Oh
Throw
wow.
in Koichi and just someone random.
That would be incredible oh, as
Just
they
start
become
bringing
like
everything
yeah,
together. Bring it
like
all
as
together, make it all canon. Perfect.
yes, as we get like more offshoots of My Hero, use this as like a gluing tool to glue like some of the series together. That'd be so cool.
Make this the Avengers like comic line. I know it's a manga, but like the Avengers kind of comic line of My Hero Academia, where this just keeps going. You keep allowing team ups there, eventually having multi-chapter team ups or something kind of like that. I think that could be really cool. I mean, obviously, you
Mhm.
can just do always a spin off of like that, and I don't know if the universe will ever be so big where that's really kind of needed, but it'd be really cool if we got to that point because I don't think there's a way, even though we've all heard the rumors about My Hero Academia ending soon, that there's no way that the series is just gonna drop dead and die after that. Like between the success of Vigilantes, between team up missions and all that, they're doing so much to kind of keep it going. And I think you even are going to be talking about kind of Hori handing out the franchising rights, but he is so willing to keep handing it out to people that it's gonna. I could see kind of having a second resurgence a couple like a year after the manga ends, because like, oh great, two new offshoots are starting because two new people got the rights to pick it up and keep going with something different.
Yeah. So yeah, that is a really good point. Because I did want to talk about this about Horikoshi letting other people take his work and run with it. And I think that's a sign of what I think that's a really good sign for the series and for Horikoshi overall. So I think there's three now that we can confirm that people have run with. Except I think the movies are written by other people with Horikoshi. I don't think he like writes it, gives it to them or anything like that.
No,
Except some of them are like loosely written. Like I know what was the movie with Nine? Was that the second movie?
yeah, that was second. Heroes
Yeah,
Rising.
yeah, like that was like an ending that Horikoshi had originally for the series, and then like they reworked it into the movie. So they use his material and everything. But there's a couple. So there's Team Up Missions, which is written by Yoko Akiyama. So Akiyama has it. Furuhashi has Vigilantes, which is another one shot. If you listen to us and you don't know what Vigilantes is at this point, I don't know how you've listened to us this long and not heard us give the spiel about it. But go read it; it's amazing. And then also My Hero Academia Smash, I believe, is technically canon. It's very chibi and like doesn't look like it is,
I thought
but
that was just a retelling of the story in chibi form, isn't it?
some of them, but it talks about
Oh,
other stuff too.
hmm.
So all of those are not directly written by Horikoshi, but he's consultant on all of them. So I believe at this point they send it to him for like a final read as like, hey, read this and make sure that we don't break canon or anything like that. And I think that's such a really good sign because even if Horikoshi wants to drop My Hero, I think he is comfortable handing over some big major items to other people, which spells out really good news, I think, for the future of the series. And I think small things like the team up missions, like vigilantes, like seeing these one shots kind of come up written by other people and have the blessing of Horikoshi is a really, really good sign because normally, like manga written by like one dude and like his assistant, and they're like thrown out into the world, and that's it, and they're done. It's a pretty rare case because even if you look at some of the biggest series of all time, right, like Naruto, Dragon Ball, a lot of these are kind of I don't want to say linear series, but pretty linear. Of like they have one or two mainline things that come out, and that's really it. Like if you look at Dragon Ball, it's mostly like one big long linear thing, except for GT, which is kind of a side thing. But for the most part, it goes like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. Like they all follow in order. You don't have anything that branches out pretty widely.
Yeah.
I think that's like a pretty unique thing to like. It's kind of funny because it's a little bit of a unique thing, I think, to Western comics because superheroes do that to the fullest extent. And Horikoshi sees like Western comics, is super inspired by it, writes My Hero based on Western comics, and now this is like one of the series that's really doing that branching out in the same way. It's it's weird because it's almost poetic in how that lines up that way. But I think it spells really good news for the series in the future, and I know I want more. I just want more
Yeah.
in different areas to see like different parts of society.
And that was about true. Like, I'm newer to manga, obviously, but I can't think of another series that does anything like this. I mean, you'll see the occasional like offshoot and stuff like I mean, like one shot, but when you go through Shonen Jump, there are no other series that have like 5 different postings on them besides My Hero Academia. So it really is one of the only few that do that. So I think we're kind of lucky that gives us a lot more content to talk about. But like, I would never like Demon Slayer's done for me. Like, I would never expect that to be an offshoot. Haikyuu, never expect to be an offshoot of that. Like these ones that kind of come to an end, like, okay, they're over, I've accepted that. But like with My Hero Academia, when that comes to an end, I'm like, great, I cannot wait for the next story in the universe. It's kind of
Yeah,
how Horikoshi set up the expectations for it. And I can't wait for that because there's no way with Vigilante ending that like, oh cool, like everything's just kind of ending at the same time. We're just gonna cut all this off. Like it doesn't make sense to start doing all that universe expanding if you're not going to keep kind of doing. I mean, I guess it is. I'm sure Vigilantes made them a lot of money. I mean, whatever. But uh, it just feels like it's not going to end, and it will be a major franchise for as long as One Piece is, just in a different way of where it's going to be a universe instead of a show or a
hmm
manga, which
yeah,
gets me more excited almost in a way. I mean, I'd love to see Deku for 1,000 more chapters, but having someone else tell a cool new story in the United States. Let's go focus on all the United States stuff for a 150 chapter series. Great, that'd be awesome. And then pick a different hero and keep moving around.
Yeah, I think the ending of the main series is going to set the tone for what the series looks like in the future. A
Yeah,
100%. I think we're really going to get our answer then of however the main series decides to end, whatever Horikoshi does there. Not only is his decision to end the series, but will literally be his decision on what the series looks like for the future. He will tell us what the series like future is going to look like then. So I'm stoked. I'm stoked for it
well,
because
it go on.
because regardless, even if he completely ends things here, still such a good story.
Yes.
And it didn't. And the other thing is it didn't drag. It didn't drag on. Like he's able to end it on his own terms, and I don't know. That's a really cool thing to be able to do.
And the one thing is, I just kind of think continue about these offshoots is that the thing that I should be most excited about if they do kind of end it here is that I know you believe that all quirks are going to go away at the end. I think that you think that's part of the way that My Hero is going to end. I would love, give me a 20 chapter series of the repercussions of that. Like of
Yeah.
society just figuring out what the hell just happened and how you kind of recover from that. Like I think that'd be one of the coolest series ever. Of like, great, we're gonna end My Hero. Deku's story is done here, but now it's going to be just looking at from a kind of government view of like, what the hell do we do now for 25 chapters? You get references to characters here and there. They'll pop up helping someone or something like that, but just kind of setting the end of like, okay, we have to slowly work back to going back to normal now.
All right, I have it. I have the pitch ready. Here's my pitch. So the series ends. My ending comes to fruition of where Deku gets rid of all quirks. Now, all these big crime syndicates that were held by strong quirk users collapse in on themselves. There's this power vacuum that's seized by the small yakuza that we know are still there. They're just operating on such a low level. But now they have like a little backing. Some of the yakuza come together. They start a big crime family from like the first like quirkless crime family, right? What are we gonna do? We don't have heroes anymore. Some of the old heroes team up together, vigilantes. This is the actual vigilantes here. Like heroes taking back to the streets. It's dark, it's gritty, it's more grounded in realism, and it's the implications on what happens after everyone gets their quirks taken away.
I know that'd be wild though, because then it just feels like there's guns in My Hero at that point, and that feels weird
Yes,
to think about.
guns.
All right, anything else with these you kind of want to talk about?
No, no, no. I think that's like the major thing. I would definitely recommend it. So I bought the physical one. So in this, the other thing I wanted to call out is that it is 3 team up missions, but it's also padded out by a bunch of one shots. The one shots, I'm going to be honest, they're not great.
Yeah.
They're not great, and the reason why is because these are one shots that were put into other serialized like magazines, like manga magazines, to promote the series. They're not supposed to be like for My Hero fans. They're just supposed to be like promo material. They're kind of fun. They're a little bit interesting. I think the most interesting one is the Melissa Shields one at the very end. The other ones are like very fluffy, but like it's definitely worth it. It's very good. Would highly recommend picking it up.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed reading through them. I mean, they weren't, I think one of them I just wrote random bad chapter instead of coming up with any kind of summary for it. Like one of them was really bad, but yeah, it was still fun. I enjoyed reading through all of them. So, yeah, I definitely would recommend reading them because if you're reading team up missions at this point, you're clearly a big My Hero Academia fan just looking for more. So they're worth reading at that point, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect much. But yeah, I think that's doing pretty good. Next episode of the Class 1A podcast, we'll be diving back into number 2, which means they both have now read. But otherwise, we are still continuing going back between this and the Demon Slayer Chronicles podcast. So if you are interested in hearing our thoughts and recaps on the Demon Slayer Entertainment District arc, yeah, I had that right. We are doing that as well, so you can check that out as well. Just during the off season, we're trying to bounce around a little bit. But thank you all so much for listening. We hope you guys are enjoying the team up missions as much as we do. Let us know down in the comments below your thoughts about the chapters, which one was your favorite, or how excited you are for the upcoming, well, not upcoming, I guess, the review of number 2. But thank you all so much, and we will see you all later.